All right, we're back with another episode of Beyond the Blocks. I'm Coach Lonnie D alongside Coach Will Humphreys and Anthony Lewis. Today's guest is one of the most respected coaches in collegiate track and field. Before arriving at San José State University, he built championship programs at multiple levels of NCAA, earned National Coach of the Year honors, coached dozens of All-Americans, conference champions, NCAA qualifiers, and developed a reputation as one of the top sprint, hurdle, and relay minds in the country. His coaching journey has taken him from Louisiana State, Academy of Art University, Alabama State, Cal Berkeley, and now at San Jose State, where he serves as director of track and field and cross country. Since taking over the Spartans program in 2021, Coach Ryan has helped elevate one of the most historic brands in our sport, producing school records, All Americans, conference medalists, national level performers, while still carrying forward the legacy of Speed City. Beyond the success on the track, he's become a respected voice within the coaching profession, recently being selected to serve as a leadership role with USTF CCCA, helping shape the future of collegiate track and field across the country. Tonight, we just want to have conversations, spend some time talking about the craft of coaching, training philosophy, athletic development, building a culture, and the future of our sport. Coach Charles Ryan, welcome to Beyond the Blocks.
How you doing, fellas? I appreciate the invitation and looking forward to participation. You guys have been doing a good job with the whole thing, and everybody's into it and proud of y'all. So I appreciate being here.
Thank you. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for being here, Coach. And so we just wanted to jump right into it and just say, Coach, with every successful coach, they tend to evolve over time. So looking back, when you first started, what's one of the things that you believed as a young coach that you've completely changed your mind about today?
That's a great question. So a lot of people don't realize, like, I started coaching almost immediately upon my graduation from South Carolina in 2004. I was literally, so I graduated in 2004, jumped in my car and moved to Knoxville, Tennessee to train with Vince Anderson, who at the time was the sprint coach at University of Tennessee. I was homeless. I was living in my car. And then I tore my hamstring about, I don't know, 30, 45 days after arrival. So my first coaching job, I was coaching 9-year-old little girls for Knoxville Track Club in the city of Knoxville, Tennessee. And at that time in the world, man, I just, was just trying to help kids and find a way to not live in my car. And my first job at Louisiana Tech, when I walked into the college ranks after running my own educational program and putting 17 of our 18 kids into Division I thought that, at the college level, it was going to be kind of the same thing, right? Like, you kids that want to do the sport and you teach them what they need to know, and then they go on to bigger and better things. Yeah, no, that's not what college is about at all. It was a really rude awakening jumping into the college game, because the sense of control that you have running a club versus no control that you lose in the collegiate system is such a vast difference, right? And the biggest thing that I had to learn as a young coach is that these kids aren't you, and your story and your personal journey and how serious or not you take the sport and the things that you want to achieve, you got to meet these kids where they're at. When I was doing the club level thing, I had a very small group of people who knew what they wanted and were working towards that specific goal. Not everybody enters college that way, and the college system is creates a lot of space for a lot of shenanigans. I'll never forget my very first practice at La Tech. Coach Sean Jackson is who hired me to Louisiana Tech, and I'm out there first day of practice, and he told me to take the sprinters and get them through a warm up. And there was one young lady that just wasn't doing the warm up right. So I'm like, hey, you should try to do it like this, put your foot on the ground in this position. And she's like, I don't even know who you are. Why are you correcting me? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get you to do it better. and it just instantly became adversarial. And so I was like, you know what? It's cool. You can go. Kicked her out of practice.
Hmm.
Nope. Didn't have the authority to kick her out of practice.
Mhm.
And learned right there. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
this is a whole nother game. And I'm going to have to adapt my mentality, my philosophies, and my approach if I'm going to survive all of this.
Yeah.
And so that was a very quick and and humbling experience. Day one of being an NCAA coach for sure.
Mhm.
That's a
That's
cold response. Like, who are you?
Oh,
That's wild.
it was nuts, man. It was nuts. But you know what? I had a lot of fun at Louisiana Tech in the long run, and will forever be indebted to Sean Jackson for putting me into this profession, and for Gary Stanley, who ran the whole program. He was the boss. They gave me my first opportunity, and I wouldn't be sitting here without it. So it
what I
was crazy.
what I want to know. Sorry, what I want to know is how that conversation went with you and I guess the head coach, because maybe you didn't have the authority, but did they understand or at least support that? But maybe say you could have did it a different way or something.
No, it was kind of a culture in the moment kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that time, on that particular team, the boss, he was like distance coach over here.
Mm-hmm.
Women, there weren't really even any distance females on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And, that moment was almost like no one cared that the athlete was being disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
It was the audacity that I would think that I could do such a thing. Right. And in that moment, like I said, I had to recognize what it was. Right.
Mm-hmm.
God, how old was I? I'm the 25-year-old brand new assistant, first time in college, and I don't have the authority to
Mm-hmm.
regulate any discipline around here.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that moment, what I thought it was just simple. Like, you being disrespectful, you got to go. Right. No, in that world at that time, it was, if I got a problem, I need to take it to this person or this
Mm-hmm.
person or this
Mm-hmm.
person. And I ran my own club team for 3 years. Like, what do you mean? I don't talk to me. Like, I've kicked out hundreds of kids from practice. It's cool. We come back the next day. We good, right? Like, it was a very, very different vibe. And that's it was a hard lesson for me, but luckily I'm the sort that I can adapt and recognize what my role needs to be in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And I probably could have handled it differently. I just handled it in the moment how I thought you were supposed to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was my youth. That was my ignorance. That was my understanding. Like, yeah, I may be a coach, but I'm certainly not in charge around here. Right. As so many assistants in this business get wrong. Right. So, I still stand on that on principle I was correct, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't my principle to make. Not
Yeah.
at that place, not at that moment, not at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So as coaches, we're always learning from one another. I know that you have some mentors that have helped you along the way. Is there a specific coach or a conversation that helped change the way you think about training athletes, or change the way that you actually train athletes?
I've a lot of people have asked me that question over the
Mm-hmm.
years, and you'd be surprised that I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I mean by that. So my journey in this sport, in sports in general, I've had a lot of influences, right? I've had a lot of people around me. I've been surrounded and lucky enough to have trained under some of the best coaches, Hall of Fame, right? The only person that I would truly describe as a quote unquote mentor to me is Alonzo Carter. And no one really knows who Alonzo Carter is because he's a football coach. Alonzo Carter is currently the head football coach at Sacramento State University. He was my club coach. He was he was the guy that saved me from my own academic shenanigans that would have prevented me from even getting a scholarship in Division One.
Mm-hmm.
But Zoe didn't know nothing about track for real. He's a football guy, right? He knew if you get a bunch of fast dudes around and get them to do certain things, like, the team will look pretty good. And we had one of the most dominant, club programs of our time in our time. But when I say he's more of a mentor to me, like, Zoe taught me how to take care of people, how to do right by the young people that you're ultimately there to serve, right? There's 100 kids that would not have the futures they are currently living if not for Alonzo Carter, right? Some of us would be dead. Some of us would be in jail, right? So on the how to do right by people and how to, as a coach, make people's lives better, Alonzo Carter is my mentor for certain. And, as adults, I'm glad to, call a friend. But in the track and field space, yeah, I trained under John Smith, HSI fame when I was at UCLA. I trained under Curtis Fry at South Carolina, right? I trained for a very hot second under Vince Anderson, and all of these people are wonderful and brilliant minds and all belong in the Hall of Fame and potentially on Mount Rushmore of coaches for me. But I never took any of their philosophies into my own as a coach. Mostly because I learned as an athlete that the experience of being coached by these people meant that I learned as an athlete, like what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for me. Right. I mean, I love John Smith. I would do anything for John Smith. But as a hurdler, there was no good reason for me to be out there running 6'4", 346. Right. Now, I knew, like, instinctively in the moment, like, this doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Why am I doing this? But I'm not disrespectful. So I just did it. Right. Now, at this age, through all the education I've received, I know exactly why that was a terrible idea for me to be doing. Right. So if anything, my experiences as an athlete and the coaches I encountered kind of sharpened my personal belief of I need to train my individual athletes, not the events that they do. Right. And even once I started working with those 9-year-old little kids, like they didn't all have the same training program. Like I gave them all different stuff to do just based on what I was seeing, from them as children. When I founded my club team, it was all individualistic stuff. So I can't say I'm not a disciple of anybody. I'm not, those people are not my mentors into the profession. I will say that my entry into the profession, no one did more for me than Vince Anderson. Vince Anderson put his name behind mine before anybody was willing to. And when he really had no reason to, he just saw a talent in me and believed in my abilities. And he didn't have to co-sign me at the time he did, but I'm glad he did when no one else would. Right. So, but as far as training, nah, man, that's me.
Yeah. Hey, with Vince Anderson, I'm sure you probably thanked him numerous times, but did you ever ask him why? Like why he backed you at that time?
I did. And it's literally just what I said. Like so I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. I broke away from the Knoxville Track Club and founded my own. What it was an academic process for kids in track and field, right? It was called Track Knoxville. I would only work with high school kids, and my whole premise was I wanted to make sure that their educational path was cleared in order for them to get into the space where somebody could recruit them for track and field, right? The stuff that I screwed up in my freshman and sophomore year in high school that Alonzo was able to fix for me, I wanted these kids to not go through all of that, right? So yeah, they were talented and yeah, they ran fast and we broke national records and state records and all those things, but it was always about the schools, right? I mean, I ran tutoring programs for them. I did SAT prep for them. In some cases, I went to parent-teacher conferences for them, right? And so it was always about getting them in for school. And so, through that, Vince, who was working at University of Tennessee, I had all these kids in Tennessee popping off on the track, and that's how he noticed me. But when he understood what the work that I was really trying to do, he saw value in it. And I mean, he tried to recruit some of my kids. None of them chose him. Silly on their part, right? but through literally, he got nothing of tangible value from me, but put his name behind mine, wrote me a letter of recommendation, did everything he could to try to get me into the business at the collegiate level. And he didn't have to. He did it selflessly. And I will always be indebted to him for that.
That's good.
One, I want to shout out Coach Carter. Mentioned definitely Oakland legend.
Legend.
I'm like I'm from San Diego. I've never met him, but I've heard his name multitude times of him helping athletes when they go up north and stuff like that. And I'm talking about helping as far as not necessarily on the football field, but outside of the football field, being a true father figure and stuff like that. So I see why that was your mentor, and it's funny that you said that too, because me hearing you speak, and I've heard your name within the track space too. Those similarities are there too as well. So that's a good role model just to have in life, and just knowing how to just be a man in this in this world and stuff like that. So definitely shout out to Coach Carter on that. But you mentioned you train everyone individually. Like you don't it's not a one size fit all. As you grew up running and stuff like that, were you in a one size fit all program? Like how did you kind of adjust to being able to treat athletes? Because I think it's important for athletes to understand that is your mentality, because they get lost sometimes in going places or picking places and not realizing, hey, it's either you're gonna make it or it's gonna break you. But understanding you need to go to a system to where they're gonna treat you differently. Like athlete A is not size as athlete B or whatever the case may be. So
my journey through track and field, especially growing up in the Bay Area, it almost feels random to me, right? Because there are, so for one of the best examples, Curtis Taylor at Oregon, right? Another Bay Area legend. When I was coming up as a kid, Curtis was running his EOYDC youth program in Oakland, California, right? Put hundreds of kids into college, broke records, did his thing. Curtis is a disciple of Wells and that very specific speed and power model. And he's crushed it at the youth level, crushed it at the JUCO level with Laney College, crushed it at Oregon, right? And he does what he does, and he's not, he does not deviate from the philosophy that he learned and he believed. And if that stuff works for you, it's phenomenal. I never actually encountered Curtis as a coach. He was in the Bay, I was in the Bay, but he never coached me, right? So like the legendary coaches in and around the Bay, somehow it's probably just, from my reality of my mother moving something times, when I was a kid, and being a product of a single parent, and just kind of all the shifting and moving that we did. Like I was never very stable with coaches, with areas. Like I've lived everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got by forever just on my talent. Like at one point, I had a national high jump record when I think it was like 7th grade or something like that. Like I jumped 6'4" and 3/4, as like a 7th grader, 8th grader, or something like that. Like I was always a hurdler. I could sprint a little bit. I thought I was faster than I was, but I literally had different coaches like every year because we moved around so much. So it wasn't so much, growing up in a system or not growing up in a system, but for me, what I know is that systematic approaches to training absolutely work. If they didn't work, there would be no Clyde Harts. There would be no Curtis Taylors. There would be no Tony Wells, right? Like these things work, and coaches have been successful for decades cooking their recipes the way they cook them, right? Mm-hmm. The problem with the systematic approach to training is the system isn't built for the athletes. The system demands that the athletes come and adapt to it. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't always work. And so, for every Jeremy Warner that exists in the world, there's a bunch of bodies laying in the pasture out back, right? And, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But you have to know, when you're coming into a situation, what the details are, what the specs are. I'm not beholden to any one particular training philosophy. If you asked me how I would train Coach Humphreys as an athlete with nothing about him, I would tell you, okay, these are the general things that I might believe in, but I need to work with him. Mm-hmm. I need to figure out what his strengths are and, more importantly, why they are his strengths, right? We can all watch kids on video. We can all look at PRs on paper. You don't know the reason
Mhm.
behind any of that until you work with people. So for me, it's because I've never really worked at big programs, because I've never really had, unlimited scholarships, because I'm not getting, blue chip recruiting classes every year. I can't afford to have one or two stars, one are stagnant, and three or four fall off the map every year. I can't afford that. I need to make sure that we get the kids in that we get in, and that we find a way to make the majority of them successful. We have to hit on all of our bets, right?
Mhm.
So if that means that I have to be more creative, if that means I have to be more flexible, if that means I have to be more attention to detail and run 3 different training models for my 500-meter runners, well, then so be it. That's the job, right? And so obviously science plays a huge role in, what we do for a living. Physics is physics, and you can't get away from physics, but so much of coaching is art.
Mhm.
And I believe that coaches have to be creative and patient and be able to speak different languages. The 3 of y'all may run the exact same event. Hell, I may need the 3 of y'all to do the exact same thing, but maybe I have to yell at Coach Lonnie, and maybe I have to hold Coach Will's hand, and maybe I have to not talk to Coach Anthony in front of everybody because they can't take it, right? I have to be able to know how to do all that. More so, I have to be willing to figure that out about my kids, right? And so the people who are in a position to rinse and repeat, they're going to be successful. That's great. But I can't rinse and repeat and be successful.
Mhm.
So I've always taken a different approach to it and had to figure out, ways to squeeze everything that we can get.
That's good.
Yeah, this is something too that's important. That we're just kind of realizing, like, the more we do this, the more we hear from families and parents and things like that. This is something that people don't know and don't really think about and don't know to ask. You know what I'm saying? And so that's something we kind of want to talk about more with regard to recruiting and things like that. Because I honestly never thought about that until we started talking about it on this show, and it's like, damn, that's kind of good conversation to have with each of the coaches. How do you coach? This is how this works for this athlete. What's your ideas on coaching? Are you adaptable, or is it just everyone's got to do your system? And then me as a parent, okay, does that system work for my athlete? Or so I think that's like, I'm glad you said that. That's something we'll definitely share with everybody.
Like, if Kid X grows up in a speed and power model, and that model was successful for them in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but they sign on to a program that runs a volume-based training model. You got the data that suggests that's probably not going to work,
Mm-hmm.
right? But maybe the money was bigger there. Maybe it was glitz and glamour. Maybe it was just the coaches got mouthpiece and are excellent recruiters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the crash is going to come, right?
Mm-hmm.
So matching the skill set and the temperament and the things that you have learned about yourselves as athletes, or the people that you work with, your kids,
Mm-hmm.
your athletes at the high school level, at the JUCO level, you have to know and have some kind of sense of what works for you. And then find people that are either in that wheelhouse or adaptable to change, or it's going to be a crash and burn situation. And we see every year,
Yeah.
big programs and small. We see it. That's half the reason that the transfer portal is the chaos that it is.
Yeah.
Well, you just okay. So I wasn't gonna go there, but you said the transfer portal is chaos. What?
Yes, it is.
So, what would you change about it, or what would you change, adjust, or maneuver with the transfer portal? Because it is a lot of kids getting in the transfer portal and not staying due to either not getting faster, or they just getting faster and want to be at a bigger school, which not necessarily the right path. But I like to get your mindset on it.
So the number one thing I would change about the transfer portal is transparency in education. I'm a Division I coach. I can log in right now and I can see all kind of things in real time, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the population knew that in our sport specifically, you have that over the past 5 years, consistently 30 to 40% of the kids that go into the transfer portal never make it out,
Mm-hmm.
then I think people would have a different view of going in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's our job as universities, athletic departments, to actually give those kids that level of education by the numbers, right?
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people don't think the transfer portal should exist. I'm not one of those people. I always tell people my personal story in that, right? I was working at Alabama State. Robin Johnson uh, uh, at Cal brought me home to the Bay Area, gave me a shot to be her assistant coach at the University of California, Berkeley. I will always love Robin for bringing me home, right? I recruited, from a sprint perspective, the best class that Cal had seen in years. And in that summer, when they were all getting ready to come to school, I found out that I was going to be a parent for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And my contract was up. And San Jose State offered me $30,000 more, and Robin couldn't match it. So when you got a $30,000 bump and a baby on the way, you say yes, right? That was a life decision for me that I had to do. Well, those kids that came to Berkeley specifically because I got them there, they never got to be coached by the person that brought them there. They wouldn't have been there otherwise. I don't think they should be forced to stay. I think if I have freedom of movement, the kids should have freedom of movement. And that's what the transfer premise was. Now, it's morphed into this wholly different monstrosity, right?
Right.
And so education and transparency, I think they need way more of that. I do believe that there should be some kind of rule and regulation about how many times you can transfer. Not because kids should get locked into a program, but just because the lessons they're not learning by being able to dip whenever the hell they want to are going to do more harm than good in the short term, right?
Mhm.
So I'm cool with transferring once. I'm cool with the idea that if the people who brought you to the school no longer are going to be at the school, you should get a pass. But this random, I can transfer every year because I feel like it. No, like people don't realize I can recruit a kid, come to my school, train them all fall. They can go into the transfer portal in December and race in a new uniform in January. That's chaos. You can't do stuff like, you should be able to do stuff like that, right?
Right.
Like that, those kind of things. And football has their issues, and all of this stuff is created for football and basketball. We just kind of got to suffer with the ramifications of it, right?
Mhm.
But I think what they did this past summer, doing away with the spring. We used to have 3 portal windows. Now we only have 2. I think that's an improvement. I don't think that the transfer portal opening while we're all at the NCAA preliminary round is very good business either. I think that is stupid, because you take a program like mine, we're a small school, mid-major, we're not very well funded and all these things. I done took these kids to NCAA level, potential All-American level, and now I'm at the national championship, and they're auditioning for their new coaches in real time. No. I'm not here for that, right? So I think we need some different rules and some different safeguards on it. But the portal should exist, and I think the NCAA got real scared about being sued over every little thing and landed on pure deregulation. And pure deregulation is never a good thing for anybody.
Yeah.
So,
And when
I'm sorry, I
I
was
think
gonna say I want to stay in the pocket here, since we're talking about scholarships and all that kind of stuff, and the portal. I know that. So we had a talk when we had a lot of talks, but we had a talk when the roster limits were coming and all that. And like as a coach of a mid major, I know that affected you differently than it affected some of the other your peers at the Power Four schools. Can you talk about that a little bit and the tough decisions you had to make for your student athletes?
Yeah. So rev share is crippling our sport. I am absolutely on the side of college athletics is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. You cannot have that money without the athletes. The athletes should get a cut of that, in my personal opinion. But there's a way to go about that. There's a way to regulate those things. There's a way to tie those kind of dynamics to things like, education and all that stuff, right? There's a million different ideas of how to do that better. The rev share model that we're current, again, pure deregulation. What nobody really realizes from a track and field perspective is on the rev share side of business, track and field is not a protected entity at any Division I conference, not a one. Okay. And so when you're not a part of the protected class, you are left to the decisions of your individual conference and then your individual schools within said conference, right? I'll give you an example. I'm at a G6 school, right? We don't have to pay out the 22.5 million in rev share to our student athletes. We only got to pay 2.5 million. Well, we don't make $2.5 million around here, right? So when the rev share numbers are due, there's only, if you don't have the revenue to distribute it, how do you comply? Well, there's only three ways that you can create more money. You can fire people. No one wants to do that, right? You can cut sport programs and create more dollars. There's hundreds of examples across the country of different universities cutting different sport programs, right? But that's really ugly. So most people don't want to do that. Well, then the only other big pocket of money that exists is to redistribute the scholarship dollars within the department.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody's doing. That's what's happening in track and field across the board, even at the big levels. People don't realize, right? The NCAA advertised all of this new business as an increase of scholarship opportunities for all sports. And that was good PR, but that's not actually what it is. It's roster limit. And 3 years ago, if I wanted my women's team to be 80 girls, I can't imagine why I would do that. But there were programs that big. There were programs bigger than that. I had my 12.6 for the men. I had my 18 for the women, and I could have as many people on the team as I wanted to. What they did is they came in and did roster limits. So off rip, there are less seats at the Division I table than there were 3 years ago. That's just a fact. 3 years ago, when my men's team was the best version it's been under my tenure, when we had 9 people reach All-American status, when we ran 38-6 in the 4x1, we had hurdlers in the finals at nationals, right? I had 12.6 scholarships to build that roster. Florida had 12.6, Georgia had 12.6, Texas had 12.6. Yeah, all those places had like NIL dollars and other resources that I would never have, but we all had the same scholarship packages, right, to build. Well, now some schools got 45 scholarships for girls and some schools have 2, right? I got 2.3. I got 1.7 because at my school, we have to move scholarship money around to pay the bill share. And I'm not protected. Most people don't realize there are and I won't get into other people's business, but I'm gonna tell you this. In the SEC, where everybody thinks the richest of the rich exist, there's only 5 programs that are truly fully funded for scholarships for track and field right now. In the Big Ten, it ain't 5. In the ACC, it ain't 5. In the Big 12, it ain't 5, right? And so everybody's dealing with losing resources compared to what they used to have and limited seats at their table from what they used to have. And that's why high school kids are ignored. That's why recruiting is so much more difficult now. That's why people die in the transfer portal, right? Because there's less seats at the table. There's ultimately less money to go around. Yes, the rich have gotten way richer. There was already a gap between me and, whoever, the Georges of the world. I love Carol. Shout out to Carol Smith Gilbert. There was already a gap. Now that gap is bigger than the Grand Canyon, but we're all still here trying to fight to go to Eugene. We're all still here trying to play the same game. And it's completely out of balance.
How has that changed the way you recruit your athletes?
Ironically, it hasn't really changed my model much. My model here, I believe when you take a job, you have to, review the landscape of the job you take and strategically do recruiting for what you do, right? I'm a mid-major, California-based public school with a pretty rich history in sprints, hurdles, relays. right? So I'm not going to come to a San Jose State and try to run an elite distance program. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? So my model has always been California first, California almost exclusively. The dynamics of my university say that if I recruit an international student, I can get that out of state fee waived. But if you're from Texas, I can't. So, every school has their own little kinks to it, right? So it makes good business sense, and it makes, logical sense that I focus our attention on the California high school kids and try to keep the best of the best local. And if I do that, my team's going to be pretty damn good because California is the best recruiting pool there is, right? But then the next step of that is international because I can get that out of state fee waived. We don't typically recruit out of state Americans unless they're either really rich and their families can afford the fees, or pure dynamic game changers that will instantly make our program more relevant on the national scene, right? That's what I saw in some of our young men that I had a few years ago, right? But now with the money shift with rev share, I can't even afford to do. So, it's always been Cali first, and it will always be that.
What, so I'm gonna switch subjects a little bit. I want to talk about like your planning and how you put your workouts together. So when you're sitting down and you're mapping out your year, your training, what does your training cycle look like, and how do you build your fall training so that the athletes will peak at conference and NCAAs?
Sure. Now, again, this is very, very general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about me and mine here is you got to understand yes, I may be the boss, I may be the director of track and field, but I believe in collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have worked for me in the past and the people that currently work for me now, they all understand that if you're going to work here, we're going to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're talking about myself, Tiana Madison, David Verberg, Lamont Johnson. Like, we work together to figure out what this thing should look like, right? But from a very, very general standpoint, these are the parameters. We don't ever start practice. Our first day of practice is always the Wednesday after Labor Day. That's just school dynamics and, calendars, et cetera. So the first 6 to 8 weeks, I can't even rationally call that track practice. Like, it's boot camp, right? We are preparing everybody's bodies for, the regiment that will ultimately be a full-length NCAA track season. Like, that's 11 months, right? Like, it's a long process for this year. So we take the first 6 to 8 weeks and it's boot camp. It's a lot of hills, it's a lot of plyos, it's a lot of grass, it's a lot of bounding. They might see a track once a week if they lucky, right? Sand, a lot of just get the body in positions. And when we're doing that stuff, we're evaluating movement patterns. We're seeing who responds well to different style, right? But we're just trying to build that very, very specific base layer of, making them better athletes. I mean, let's be real. In today's culture, kids don't play outside anymore, right? You'd be surprised how many kids, like with good marks, can't skip sideways without looking like Bambi, right? Like you tell them to change directions and they lose their mind, right? Like we're trying to build some basic athleticism, and improve those things, improve balance, improve, single leg ability to stand still in certain instances, right? So it's as rudimentary as it could possibly be. And for us, that's the sprints, that's the jumps, that's the hurdles, that's everybody. They're all in one big cohort for the first 6 to 8 weeks. And then once we break that up, again, generally speaking, we go into acceleration development for most of them. Now, that will look different for a 400-meter runner versus a 60-meter specialist versus a hurdler, right? But if you understand that speed development takes significantly longer to build, and it does, than aerobic capacity does, I don't understand why I would shift from that into aerobic work, because I can do that later. I can affect somebody's aerobic threshold in 3-4 weeks. But I might need 6 months to get this power development right, to get these acceleration models together. So once we get out of boot camp, which is usually around, mid to late October, we go into acceleration development and start trying to individualize the needs of each kid through the rest of the fall. We don't have any competitions in the fall semester, so we're just trying to get them to December with the best possible foundation to roll into indoor. Now, around here, winter break is 3 weeks. That's the earliest I can get them back. And trust me, they can do a lot of screwing up of the plans in 3 weeks. So once they all return from Christmas, that first kind of 30 days, there's always a competition or two on the indoor schedule, but it's more so of a reset, and we're checking to see how much you've lost over the time in which we sent you off into the world, right? Because everybody, when they go home, they got different dynamics, right? Some people have reputable coaches and access to tracks and equipment, and some people have none of that, right? So again, it's individualized. Like, hey, I know you're going to Dallas, you're going to be in the Houston area for 3 weeks. Here's some people I know. Go holler at them and crash their parties for a few weeks and see what's going on, right? It's all very specific to the kid. But indoor's cool. I like indoor. The weather's always amazing. But indoor is ultimately a training tool for outside. And so we spend the indoor season trying to specifically fine tune the skill sets of our individual kids in whatever their pursuits are, trying to get their race models together. And I mean, if you're a 400-meter runner, right, your indoor race model and your outdoor race model are in your brain very different, but the application of it is actually not that far off, right? Most all the kids we encounter in the 400, for example, the biggest problem, they don't want to run the first half of the race. They want to go out too slow. Well, it's indoor. You better get yourself to the front or you're going to have a long day in the back losing, right? So even though they think they're trying to learn how to navigate 2 laps, what they're actually trying to learn is how to run appropriately effort-wise in the first half of your race. So transition that to outdoors, right? So indoor is more about setting the foundation for the races that we want outside. The 60 can set your foundation for the 100, or you can tweak the 60 to specifically be the 60, right? If you can run a 60 one way that will destroy your 100-meter race, or you set it up, for the future of where your 100-meter race should be. We try to do the latter, and we'll live with the results indoors, right? So it's just a lot of planning from there. And then once indoor is over, it's, race specific, event specific, tweaks until we get there. The whole peaking thing, I can't say I believe in peaking. Here's the secret to peaking: rest. It's not really that difficult, right? Doing too much will destroy your idea of peaking. I've seen coaches at the high school level, at the college level. I was at World Championships one day and one year and specifically watched the coach absolutely ruin any chance at a medal the week of it leading up to the meet. It was so amazing. I just sat there and just watched it. I was like, gee, this is going to be a disaster, right? Rest is your best friend when it comes to peaking. So our quote unquote peak model is figuring out, does Coach Will need an extra 2 days before he goes on this time trial run that we need to do versus Coach Lonnie, who can go straight through and only needs 24 hours, right? It's my job. It's our job to know who's who and what's what. So, our peaking system is all about deload management.
Mhm.
I like
I'm
how,
glad you said that.
go ahead.
Resting. I'm glad you said that resting because I've seen some high schools where you got to meet on Saturday and we outside hot on Friday.
Bro,
Working out. I was like, what's going on? Like, I'm trying to, these kids trying to win the next day.
man, listen.
Yeah, wow.
So you mentioned how you go 6 to 8 weeks, in the fall, and then you get into that 3-week period for, winter break and things like that. How difficult at times or frustrating has it been for you as a coach? Because you may have something brewing with a few athletes, they're going to be hitting really good times in indoor season. Like, how frustrating has it ever been for you with maybe a specific athlete or so where it's time to let them go, and then they come back and they've totally like wrecked their training methods or their fitness levels. Like,
I will say when I first started doing this, it used to piss me off at a level that is hard to articulate. I have learned to just expect it and let it go.
wow.
Mm.
It like every year,
Mm.
there's going to be 2-3 people that just destroy what they've done. Right? There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care. You could send them training plans with all the specifics in the world day to day.
Mhm.
They're not gonna do them. You could send them nothing. Just keep doing what you've been doing. It's still gonna be weird for some of them, right? There's gonna be kids that are serious about themselves and hyper focused, and they'll go out and train over the break, but some of them are gonna do too much,
Mhm.
right? And fry their central nervous system. Or Coach X that they used to have, is so happy that they're back and they just want to have a feel of some level of participation in their new journey. So they're gonna do too much with them. I had a girl break her ankle one year over winter break doing hurdles, and I specifically told her, do not hurdle when you're at home.
Mhm.
Right? So, like I said, I've learned to just expect the worst, be happy when it doesn't happen, and strategically with the meets that we have in place, and with the training that we will plan to anticipate it being worse than it is, because when they come back in shape, well, it's an easy adjustment,
Mhm.
right? If I expect them to come back at this level and they can't or they haven't, and I am trying to raise training to here, then I'm gonna get them hurt, right? So I expect that there's gonna be a drop off and then we're gonna have to rebuild it, and it's fine.
It, it was one more thing that I wanted to touch on. When you mentioned, you and the coaches collaborate together, and do a lot of things like that. One that's not very common in regards to some of the coaches that I've seen and talked to over the years, especially on the high school level, because there's a lot of varying. It's a lot of variety on coaching staffs. Like
Sure.
you have the head coach, then you have, and they try to stay centered, but then you may have like the asshole coach. You may have the
Yep.
middle ground coach where they kind of, you know, talk to everyone, and they're very compassionate and have a lot more empathy towards the athletes. Not saying that all the other coaches on the staff don't have levels of empathy or compassion. However, uh, the coaches don't all see the eye to eye.
For
What
sure.
what about your staff that you try to get all of you guys on the same page? What do you do to get all of you guys on the same page?
So it's not even that we have to all be on the same page.
Okay.
We all have to be on the same page in front of the kids,
Mm,
right? It ain't no different than, raising a traditional family.
okay.
Mom and dad fighting in front of the children is probably a bad idea.
Right.
You go over there and fight so they don't have to deal with any of that, right? So every iteration of my staff, we've had arguments. We've had some knockdown, drag out debates about what things should be and shouldn't be. And yes, again, given my position, I always have the ability to just overrule you because I'm in charge. But I don't, right? I don't really believe in that. If I've hired you to come work here, it's because I want your input. I want your thought process. We are not always going to agree on it, but the places that we can easily agree, fine, whatever. Like, I'm not going to debate training theory with little bitty differences, right? If there's a complete separation of philosophy, now that's something we're going to have to sit down and bang out and get to some kind of resolution on, right? But a lot of the dynamics that work here, again, so the way when I took this job, my administration said, here's your chunk of money for assistance. You could do whatever you want with it, but that's your chunk of money. It's not going to change. So I could hire a normal staff where I got 6 and 7 people working underneath me, all with various levels of pay. Some people going to be happy. Some people going to be in their feelings, but I'm going to have a coverage for everything. I made the opposite decision. I decided I'm gonna hire 3 people, make them all pretty damn well paid for assistants, and we're just gonna have to all do more work. And that model works for me at a place like this. Now you give me some big budgets, I'm gonna have a lot more staff members. But how we collaborate is just a matter of, and obviously I hire people that I understand in general to be knowing what I want and how it's going to work, right? But for example, you can argue that it's me 4 and 3 other sprint coaches on my staff, right?
Mhm.
Tiana's clearly a sprinter. David's clearly a sprinter. Lamont's background is in sprints as well. Well, most staffs that have a multitude of coaches in the same area, they split it a few different ways, men versus women, or long sprints versus short sprints. My problem is I do not want to be the director of track and field who sits in the office and facilitates business. My passion is coaching. So I'm never going to step out and just hand over my kids to people, right? We're going to work together. Now, David does an excellent job to where I don't have to do too much or even be involved in the distance space because that's not my expertise anyway. So he handles that. And me, him, and Lamont collaborate on things in the long sprint space. Me, Lamont, and Tiana collaborate on things in the short sprint space. Me and Lamont collaborate on things in the hurdle space. And Tiana don't need no help in the jumps, but I'm here to help whenever she does have a question, right? And that works for me, and that works for us, and it works here. A lot of people, a lot of head coaches, a lot of directors couldn't do it that way because there's too much ego in it. A lot of assistant coaches couldn't handle my collaboration model because there's too much ego in it, right? So if you're a coach who wants to be in your silo, running your own thing your own way, you can't work for me because that's just never going to be your reality, right? So, I've always collaborated. I've always, understood and believed that the 2 heads is better than 1 as long as both of them are smart, right? And so, I try, like, why would I deny my sprint kids access to Tiana Madison? Why would I do that? Right? So, I want people here that want to work in that kind of environment. And luckily, I've been able to find them in different iterations of staff members that we've had.
I like that.
For our audience who may not know Tiana, like who she is by name, because they might know her by a former name athletically. Can you enlighten the audience?
Sure. So Tiana Madison is one of the most underappreciated great American athletes of her time. She has 9 global medals. She is Rio Olympic champion in the long jump. She is the pop-off leg for the world record 4x1 and the second fastest world time in the 4x1 ever from Rio 2016 and London 2012 respectively. Tiana won her first world championship in the long jump at 19 years old while competing for the University of Tennessee. You may know her by her former married name, Tiana Bartoletta. Tiana has finished 4th place at the Olympics in London in the 100-meter dash as a secondary event. Tiana is the only woman in the world history to run under 11 seconds and jump over 7 meters in a career clean. The other 4 women had to take PEDs to do that. And I don't say that as an accusation. I say it as a documented fact. Okay. Like, here's a crazy stat for Tiana. People don't realize Tiana, Allison Felix, and Sonya Richards-Ross are all in the same class. They all the same age. Tiana had the longest career, as in quit the business last, right? And Tiana she has 2 degrees now, just graduated from Cal State Northridge with her master's degree, all while coaching, raising our son, and somehow doing school all together, which I consider a miracle. I could never have done any of that. She's she's best friend. She's my family, and I consider myself lucky that she even chooses to entertain this crazy business that we're all in as a coach, right? Because she definitely could be doing other things. So, the people that are here and have access to her, and she's been along this coaching journey with me in one capacity or another, from Alabama State to Cal to here. And, she's just a wealth of knowledge and a gem, and not the only Olympian on my staff. Right. So, we have a really unique collection of talent here. And, you know, for all the things that we lack in resources or funding, I think we more than make up for in knowledge and development of talent. And, if you want to learn how to do this business at a high level, if you want to learn how to make the transition from collegiate to pro, like, I got 25 years of knowledge in that space, not through myself. Right. So, like, there's so many things that we do well here. And Tiana's a massive, massive, massive part of all of it. I could not do this at this level the way I do it without her being here.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about your staff, I think that's very important. I think for the athletes to understand is, yes, San Jose State is a mid-major, but when we talk about coaching, right, and just going far in the sport, I think that's misunderstood. Of, like, I think a lot of these high school coaches, I feel, need to push their athletes when you're talking about being successful and getting faster to that program, because I mean, just the level of coaching at that program is what you put together is wow.
Well, a lot of that reality is unfortunately driven by ego, right? So, I mean, listen, I'm a California kid. I grew up here. Everybody knows I go hard for California, right? In this state, it's very, very obvious, right? In this state, in this sport, one way or another, the places people are trying to get themselves to is USC, UCLA, Stanford, or Cal, period. And I get why for all four of those places. I was one of those kids too, right? But so many of the parents, so many of the coaches, they will literally throw away quality opportunities at schools like mine and other small schools like ours, waiting on an opportunity that's never coming. Every year we have offers out, real offers, tens and twenties of thousands of dollars of offers out to kids who don't pick them up because they're just waiting on the day that big label X is going to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen, right? And it's not because those kids aren't talented. It's because the priorities at some of these places are not even focused in there. And that was my reality when my first job at Louisiana Tech. Everybody in Louisiana wants to go to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously so. But we spent a lot of time beating LSU at a lot of things when I was coaching there, right? I'll never forget, there was a young lady who was the best hurdler in the state. My hurdlers were faster than theirs at the time. We offered her a straight up full scholarship before NIL and all the things, and she went to LSU for books.
Yeah, wow.
Right? And I'm talking about this young lady, when I did a home visit, this young lady lived off of a highway, off of a road, off of a gravel lane.
Mm-hmm.
So her family was not rich, but the LSU brand was so powerful to them, right? And so much of the recruiting game is that they want what they want. And I mean, I know high school coaches that will literally show and try to direct their kids to the schools that they want them to go to because they think in a couple of years they're going to somehow get put on if they keep doing that. That's not how any of this works. Right? And so you get so much bad information out there. You get so many misguided and missed opportunities through that. There are excellent coaches everywhere. I come from Division II, right? There are great coaches at Division II. I would say a good 20% of athletes in Division I have no business being in Division I. They should be in Division II, and they would be thriving.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I worked at the HBCU world. There are phenomenal coaches in the HBCU world. There are trash coaches in the HBCU world, just like at the P4s, right? But it's about matching your opportunity with what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And so many people are, in what is actually going to be in front of them.
I say as coaches, we see that all the time. Like Lonnie and I, we talk about this, and we just try to help the kids get their education paid for, and just point them here, there, everywhere. I've had conversations with you about several kids, and like you and I know, like we know a mutual kid that I tried to send your direction, that their family made a poor decision, and now I don't know what they're doing, but we see it all the time. It's just so crazy. That's also one of the reasons. Like, there's so many whys for the three of us of why we started this podcast, but that's a big part of it. Wanting to like help educate families, and so they don't keep making horrible decisions.
Because I'll be honest, I am that parent who, when I think about my daughter, with her biz being a power sprinter, right? Like, when I think about to her junior year, like, I can hear the coach now just saying, "Hey, I think if Coach Carroll ever calls, like, that would be perfect for her. That'd be perfect. That'd be perfect, perfect." So that's all I'm hearing, right? Not knowing no better. So she goes to that program, and just understand that there's nothing wrong with that program. It just wasn't right for my child. So just being educated enough to understand, okay, this is what you had all in high school. Looking at other programs that better fit what you had and match what you had, what you talked about earlier, right? To where you can avoid having to be in the transfer portal and going to said school, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought that she was going to pick the another big time program and stuff like that. But choosing a program, hey, they might not be known for sprints, but coming from where you came from, that's the right program for you. So I feel like it's just from a parent's perspective, is we as parents have to really do our due diligence and our research and have our set of questions and stuff like that, because the average, I just love track, but other parents, they're just, hey, I just need my kid to go to school, but not understanding, hey, just because they have all these dollars and that big sign on their shirt, hey, that's not the right fit.
It's a part of American sports culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the sports that dominate our culture are football, basketball, right? And if you're a football player, the label matters. You're going to have more access to resources, that you're going to have access to the NFL Combine, right? You're going to play on TV. You're going to have better visuals of your tape. All these things matter in that space. In our sport, man, listen, the label is the label. You still got to line up, right? None of that matters. It's an individual sport. It's you in your lane against the field, against the clock, right? So a lot of that gets missed. But in today's world, where so many things are purely transactional, it's even more important for the parents and the coaches working with these young people to do their due diligence and understand what's what. I've seeded so many kids into, like, we take kid X that nobody was really looking at. We turn them into an All-American, and now they're in the Big 12. They're in the SEC. They're in the ACC. They're in the Big 10. And the vast majority of the people that have left our program have not found equal or better success in their new fancy situations.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a knock on any of the coaches that they went to. It's a simple matter of the kids not understanding the difference between what they have and what they're going to. It took a long time for us to figure you out. You can't just take that and land at the new place and think it's going to be like this, because that's not how any of this works. And again, everything's so transactional, right? So big program X may have a superstar who transferred and elevated, but how many of the other transfers fell off? No one pays attention to that, because they see who's running on TV at the national meet. They don't look behind the curtain, even though the curtain is readily accessible, right? So it just takes a little bit more time and attention to detail. And I get it. I mean, listen, most all the kids that have decided to leave our program for greener pastures, and by greener, I mean money, helped them do that. I have given them hugs out the door like, hey, bro, I can't give you a car and an expense account. Go do you, right? Or, hey, you got 10 amazing situations in front of you. Avoid these 4, pick from these, right? Like, I ain't got no problem with it. I'm fine with the business reality that we are all living in. I just want to play it honest, right? I want to do it without the tampering. I want to do it straight up. Like, I'm perfectly okay with kid X whose dream school is in the SEC. The SEC is ignoring them. Come to us. We'll make the SEC pay attention to you. And then you can go do what you do. I'm cool with that. I just want to know what game we're playing up front. You know?
I also think it. I also think the high school coaches play a role in that, in knowing their personnel. I mean, like Anthony, you already discussed, like from a parent perspective, what our thoughts and ideas sometimes are if we don't really know. But as a coach, you know your personnel, you know that athlete, you know that, the coach at, Power 4 school X may not be the best fit for this athlete. Let's get them to this school to where they can still grow and mature, still get quality coaching. And like how you mentioned your staff, like having the accolades that they do, having you know, because this is I want to just say there's a lot of minorities in track and field. You have a female, African American female coach on the staff that, some of these young women can use and utilize because they've probably never been coached by one before ever. That is, a, I don't want to say a well, it is a great recruiting
It is.
tool, but I would say like sometimes these athletes need a little bit more nurturing, at the college level. That high school coach needs to kind of like advocate for those athletes to go to the better school that is fit for them personally, academically, and athletically. And like you said, sometimes it's egos where coaches are like, oh, well, I got this kid to, all of these Power 4 schools and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. At the end of the day, what's going to be best for that person? And I think that's what we need to really be trying to do for these kids.
And let me be very, very clear about this. I've been on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when I founded my high school educational program, I put 17 of our 18 kids into Division I. People used to come to Knoxville, Tennessee, and sit in my athletes' houses and promise them all kind of mess. And then when they thought they were losing ground, they would call me straight up, and be like, "Well, Chuck, if you can make sure that Jackie ends up coming to school here, there may be a position for you." What? Like, when I tell you that was instant, you are out of here for me. Like, I'm not fitting to try to use my single mother inner city hurdle child who needs her future. I'm not going to use that to try to put myself on. I'm not going to sell her to you for my benefit. Like, what are you talking about? But coaches say stuff like that. And if they're doing it then, I know damn sure they're still doing it now because there's way more avenues for shenanigans now.
Wow.
Right? So it's ultimately about integrity.
Mm.
And so much of that gets lost in this purely transactional game. It just is. So I have a lot of empathy for all sides of this because recruiting is hard. It's stressful. If I'm a parent trying to see my son or my daughter, land the future that they want to land, I can't imagine how stressed that is. My kid's 4. Eventually I'll figure that out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, to your point about, the, like Tiana and her role and what she represents on so many levels, it is a huge advantage for us. Listen, I wish there were more minority women in our sport coaching. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of them who are phenomenal, but there's not nearly enough of them in the business. I feel incredibly proud. And I'll put Tiana in a coaching space next to anybody you want. I promise you she's not taking a step back. So yeah, it's a huge, huge advantage for us. But there's just not enough of those people. And so if you have access to some of those people, like, we're spending a lot of time talking about sprints and hurdles. I came up in Division II. Diljeet Taylor, for my money, is the best distance coach in America. And when me and her were in Division II together, what nobody thinking about her as this, American female coach. She's just out there, but she's so good, and she builds her kids, and she cares about them, and that shined through in that day. And now she's out here dominating the world in her side of this profession, right? But how many of those people are there? It's just her, right? So we need more of that. And, that's why I've always been a big advocate of all things that I can do to, boost women in our profession, hire women. I've hired more women in this profession than a lot of the women that preach about hiring women in this profession. Right? So, like, all of that's been a passion of mine for a really long time, but there's just not a lot of people. And, we need to promote and highlight and push those narratives and get more of those people out there and support them when they're in these roles. Because I don't care which side of the minority equation you're on. If you're a minority in this business, it is really, really difficult to function, to rise, and to navigate this profession. It just is. And so, as a person who had to struggle through a lot of that, I'm always trying to position myself to help those, coming behind me.
Yeah, as you say that about like women who advocate hiring other women, the few that immediately come to mind, like I can't think of too many that have another female on staff who's not maybe an assistant and who's actually a coach. And I can't think of any that have two female coaches, but have like maybe a coach or maybe a female assistant, but several men. So that's yeah. Makes me
We
think
were at the convention a few years ago. I was just sitting around, just having discussions with people, and I really, people were shocked when I really meant what I said. Like, I would love to one day be in a position where I would be able to hire a complete female staff. Like, that would be so dope to me. And people think that's weird. Why? There's all male staffs all over the country.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is, I couldn't, if you just gave me unlimited resources, I couldn't probably find a high quality female coach in every discipline that I would want to position them in, because there's just not enough people in this business. Right. But that's an aspiration of mine. I would love to be able to pull something like that off.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Yeah.
That one did before we get back into like again, we have some questions, but then we roll it out. But I want to make a point of something too before I forget. And I would recommend this for parents, like parents, if you have some athletes, some young athletes, like after their sophomore year, going into their junior year, you can then start talking to coaches. I don't know if it's June 15th or July 15th or there's some date, a specific date. But I met you the summer after Megan's sophomore year when we could see coach. We did a trip. So we went to Cal, we went to Stanford, and we went to San José State. And meeting you, man, I tell everybody all the time. I don't know if I told you this, but I literally tell every parent, coach, my friends, when I'm talking to parents about recruiting, like that conversation we had in your office where you told us how you recruit and what you look for, and you introduced me to Tifers and just put me on game on what a scholarship is, and the X percentage versus the 92% versus the full scholarship. And you just gave me so much information, so much game. And you don't even know, I've helped so many people just based on that conversation. And, fortunately, I've gotten to learn more and more and more. But I'm super thankful to you for that. And that like truly helped me out. And that, again, blessed so many people just from that conversation. So I want to tell you thank you, number one, and give you your props, because I don't know if I've told you that face to face or, camera to camera. But I appreciate you for that. And I definitely would encourage people to do that, reach out to some of these coaches and have these conversations and see if you can, meet them and get an early introduction to see if they can start following your kid, and maybe that'll turn into something. But can you talk about that a little bit, like how what your formula is for deciding who gets what and how you recruit?
Sure. So first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you took that information and ran with it and gave it to others. Like, that's the whole idea, right? My number one recruiting secret, if you will, is just tell people the truth. Like not the partial truth that makes you and your program look good. Like tell them the truth, right? And so, especially now, as this business has changed and evolved, and so many of the financial functionality is so different. Like if anyone who comes on an official visit to my school, like they sit down and they get a full breakdown, not just of how we do things here, but how the business works. And the reason that I do that is because telling people the truth opens their ability to make real decisions, right? The more information you give people, a better understanding that they have of all things, they're going to make better decisions. They're going to make more informed decisions. And at the end of the day, the benefit to me is that they respect us for it, right? If I tell what you need to hear versus what you want to hear, when everyone else is telling you what you want to hear and blowing smoke up your ass, you may not come here, but you know that we're real, and you know that I tried to help you along this process. And I know we've landed more recruits than we've lost with that, right? And so I'm always going to do that. I've been doing that since I was 25 years old on every side of this business. Like, just be real with people. Why? Because Alonzo Carter was real with me. I was the number 2 hurdler in the state of California. I was number 4 in the country at the time. And this man sat me down over the summer one year on one of our club meets. And he was like, your ass ain't going to college. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, fuck all that. I seen your transcript. You not going. Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? I took the classes they told me to take. He's like, yeah, no, none of this counts. And like, my mom's a teacher. Right. Like, that was a mind-blowing experience for me. And if he didn't do that for me, who knows where I would have landed.
Yeah.
Right. So telling people the truth is what we do. And as far as, recruiting philosophy and all these things, like, I just try to be fair about it. Like, again, I'm limited resources, right? So I don't got 45 full rides just hand over to people, right? What we try to ask ourselves as a staff, 3 levels. Can this kid help us nationally? If so, how fast is that going to take? Can they help us regionally? If so, how long is that going to take? Can they walk in the door and help us conference-wise? Now, respectfully, and shout out to my colleagues in the Mountain West, I don't really care about that, right? I work too hard to focus my attention on the conference thing. Like, I this always rings true with the Californians. The out-of-staters don't really get it, but the California State meet just finished, right? We have the hardest state qualifying process in the country, and it's not even close. I always tell California kids, how pissed off would you be if your season ended after your league meet? And their faces get, coach, I was like, right. Well, conference championship is our league meet. So I'm not really interested in my season ending after the Mountain West. I want to go to regionals. I want to go to nationals. I'm sorry, preliminary rounds. That's what it's called, right? I want to do those things. So I want people to come in here that are hyper-focused on achieving big things. And the more people that we have at the national level, that means we're probably going to do better at the Mountain West, right? So when we're evaluating athletes, those are the 3 levels we're looking at. And then you juxtapose that to the resources question. How much free money is the government going to give them? And is their talent worthy for us to fill in the gaps? If so, to what level? Because every parent wants a full scholarship. Every kid wants, the maximum compensation. I always tell the kids, y'all don't pay no bills in your house, so I'm not even talking to you about your money. I'm talking to mom and dad about money. Right? You figure out who you want to coach you, what vibe, what team the right fit for you, what academic profile fits the dream that you want to have for yourself. Me and the grown-ups will work out the finances. Don't worry about all that. Right? And through that process, like, we usually land in a good place. And trust me, I wish that I was in a situation where I could make the financial conversation easy for everybody. But, that's why, truth be told, who the best recruiters in the country are? Division III coaches, because they got no scholarships.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to convince kids to come pay $40, $50, $60,000 to go to school and you ain't got nothing to help them. Like those people have full rosters. Like they are really good recruiters.
See, I want to talk about like we got to have a D3 coach on here. Maybe you can help us out with that. But I've always wondered about that, like because I know they don't have scholarships, but my understanding is they can help them out somehow academically if the kids had the grades or kind of work it that way.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
every school has their academic, profile help. Every school has their academic scholarship basis, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, we all got academic money somehow, some way, right? At the end of the day, they don't have scholarships.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, a lot of D3 schools, we're talking about private schools. You're talking about big tickets.
Yeah.
So I respect the hell out of D3 coaches. Like they do an incredible job.
But they, like you said, like how you honest. I feel like they're honest. They tell you right up, hey, we don't give out scholarship. We don't have money. This is what we can do and we can't do. And then it's up, as a parent, it's up to you to decide. No sugar.
I mean, what's the white kid's name? It just ran 989. That's a D3 product, baby. Like there are good athletes and good coaches at every level. You just got to find the fit for you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this. The state of track and field. We just seen what happened, the crazy stuff that just happened with Marvin Bracey. We just seen the enhanced games. We know athletes, unless you're doing enhanced game, you're not really getting paid. Like with the state of track and field, do you feel like we headed in the right direction, the wrong direction? Like how do you feel about the state of track and field?
So the enhanced games is a bunch of bullshit. Okay, let's just be real about that. Only in Donald Trump's America could something like that even come to fruition. All right, the enhanced games is a clown show. All those people are doing are try to sell some products for you to buy. And if you didn't peep that in the buildup, I don't know what you thought was going on or what you was paying attention to. All that is a sales pitch that billionaires don't care nothing about it, right? So just get that up out of there. I'm disappointed in the people that chose to lend their names to that because they didn't need to do that, but the checks were big. And the proof of it is it was a complete failure from a performance standpoint. And what did they do? Oh, next time we're giving out 10 million because they know that that's going to attract more people to put their name to it. Right. It's a clown show. So forget it. That's a carnival sideshow nonsense. That ain't got nothing to do with the state of the actual sport. The state of the actual sport, in my opinion, depends on which lens you're looking at it from, right? From the youth level, the high school level, it's the best it's ever been. All right. And that's a combination of a lot of things. But I think the three biggest things it's a combination of are, one, coach's education. There is so much more knowledge out there and it's easily accessible because of the internet, right? So you have more coaches, better educated about how to develop these talents that they find at the youth level. The second layer to that is technology, things like 1080 machines and TPX and all of those things. And then the third level, obviously, is the shoe technology, right? So you combine all of those things and you're going to have these, eighth graders running professional levels and all the things, right? What I worry about at the youth and high school level is, are they doing too much with these kids, right? Because there's only two paths, right? If you're a 13-year-old and you run sub 11 in the 100 dash as a female, well, where are we going? We're gonna be FloJo or we're gonna crash and burn. There's only two realities, right? And so I love to see the marks and the performances, and they're amazing. But I do worry that they're giving the kids too much too early and not thinking about the long-term effects on their CNS systems, on their growth plates, on all the things that are definitely not finished with just their bodies as humans, right? I do worry that they're going to pay the price for a lot of that in the long run. And that's, ultimately, not something you want to see. Collegiately, as far as performances go, it's the same thing. It's the best it's ever been. I mean, the top of the top of NCAA track and field is pro track. Pick an event. It's pro track. These people are world class. These people can step out of the NCAA and win medals. All right. Some of them have, and more will happen. My concern with NCAA track and field, as far as the state of the sport goes, is how much longer are we going to be able to sustain our existence? All right. There's a viral video that Kirby Smart put out a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and he's openly talking about the reality is just mathematics. If they, the rich people, if they keep spending on ball at the rate that they are spending, they are going to crash and destroy the ability for all the other sports to exist. That's not hyperbole. It is a financial reality. And if the powers that be can't rein that in, then a lot of this is going to go away at a lot of places, at most places. And again, that's not gloom and doom. It's just arithmetic, right? So, like I said, I'm all for student athletes getting paid. I absolutely believe that the kids deserve a cut of this billion-dollar business, but there has to be guardrails. It has to make sense. My big issue with all of that has always been, since the NCAA likes to pretend that they care about education, even though they really don't, why don't you pay the athletes tied to their graduation?
I like that.
Football player X comes to your school and generates millions and millions of dollars. Okay. Put some layers into it. If you're an All-American football player, when you graduate, that's going to net you a check of boom.
Yeah.
If you're not All-American, but you all SEC, check of boom, right? You're tying athletic performance to academic performance and paying them on the back end. Do that. That's way better than paying some random kid $5 million to kind of come play quarterback for you, though they only going to stay for another year and then get a new check, right? You can't have this, right? So that is potentially going to crash us. But in the track and field space, it's the best it's ever been. And it's really fun to watch, and it's harder and harder to be good at this. But that's why coaches have to step their game up and continue to elevate. I mean, you talking about a world where, what was it? Like the 400-meter results in the East this year. That was ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, you can't be top 12 with these marks. Like it's insane. I mean, the high jump results out west, insane, right? So at the youth level, at the collegiate level, the performances and the coaches and everything is just getting better. Now, the professional level, it's in the same state it's always been. We are not a professional sport. We just aren't. It's a joke. It just is. And the part that always gets me in trouble when we're having these discussions is there's a lot of reasons and a lot of people to blame for this, but the number one blame is with the athletes themselves. Because generation after generation after generation, athletes in our sport have refused to learn the lessons of history, and they do not collectively bargain for their rights. Until they do, and until the top of each generation sees the value in collectively bargaining for everyone's rights, it's not going to get any better, right? Our sport has always been the Hunger Games. If you're good enough and it's your moment, suck every resource out of this you can while you can for yourself.
Right.
And then your time will be over and it will be someone else's time to stand up top of the world. But every tier underneath them dies, right? There are good ideas. different entities try to improve different things. There's repackaging of old ideas, like the little American circuit that's going on right now. That's not a new idea. That's not new at all, right? That's just repackaging. And that it's cool, but the prize money being paid out at that isn't any good at the level it needs to be. A lot of people were pissed off about the new standards for championships, right? They're like, oh my God, it's so impossible. Like, why would they do that? It's very simple why they're doing that. They're doing that because they want the performances qualified to the World Championships to be beholden to their ranking system. It's Eurocentric, right? The big, not big money, the big point prize are for the A level, B level meets that go on in Europe, right? We were just having this discussion on our podcast. People don't even realize what it takes to make a meet a C level meet. Well, all it takes is a certain level of prize money. It's not even a high level of prize money. If you want to have a World Athletics certified C level meet, which will be important for point production in the ranking system, what amount of money do you think you have to offer up total prize money at that competition for it to count for C level?
Probably like 20,000, 15.
So I would think
30.
that's it. Oh my God.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah,
That's it. That should be easy. Right? So it's not World Athletics' fault that there aren't a bunch of those meets around. It's not Sebco's fault. It's not a conspiracy. It's laziness and lack of knowledge, right? Because this is America. There should be 30 meets that can find 30 grand to pay to whoever you want to win, right? We all know people that could put stuff like that on. And then you'd have a circuit, right? So the pro level, the athletes need to collectively bargain, and people need to educate themselves about how processes work. And if they're passionate about the sport, put it on. Like, it's not that hard to put on a track meet. It's really not.
Yeah. I'm even shocked that no one, and I think me and Lonnie was talking about this earlier, like, I feel like it's not even that expensive to even just buy some land, create your own track. Then we can have a place where that money goes back into track and field, to where you can have our own facility. You don't have to be something huge, because at the same time you want to be able to stack the stands, and then just go from there. Like, reinvest in our sport, in ourselves. I'm surprised that just hasn't happened.
I agree with you on that. So I definitely agree with you on that. The part of the popularity argument that always pisses me off is Americans like to talk about track from a purely American perspective. What's the argument about? Oh, the sport is dying. The sport's not dying at all. America doesn't care about what we do. Okay? Track meets in Europe ain't starving for attention. Okay? Like, there's football, real football, soccer, right? Number one sport on the planet. We're about to have the World Cup, right? We're still number two. We're just not number two here. And for me, the fallacy of the argument is that we need these drastic, sweeping changes to get the American audience more engaged in our sport. America has told us what they think about our sport for a really long time. And chasing the girl that's not interested in you is not nearly as good of an idea as, watering the relationship of the one that loves you, right? So I think we need to do a better job of cultivating the fan base that we have and paying attention to what those people want and what's going to get those people more engaged, because you're not going to drag the American audience away from the football field or the baseball diamond or the NBA to come do what we do or pay attention to what we do. They just don't care like that, right? So, I don't like, you guys have probably heard, these debates for a long time. There are people in our industry within the NCAA that believe that our sport would be better off if you qualified for NCAAs as a team, not as individuals.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Right? That's been a debate for a really, really, really long time. And powerful people have consistently tried to make that transition happen, right? My problem is this. It just doesn't make any sense on its face. The NCAA championships are about to start. If you are a casual fan and you watch the championships on television, what are you going to hear? It's a team competition. We're trying to see who scores the points. We're trying to see who wins the trophies. And every event, you're going to see the best of the best athletes in the country. And there's going to be 60, 70 programs represented here. Some of the programs got 30 kids in the meet. Some of the programs got 1 kid in the meet.
Yeah.
But coast to coast, we are all represented here. Now, the people that want to do the team model will try to tell you that if there were only 20 programs represented here, it would be more popular. That doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't even make logical sense. They will tell you that if those 20 teams got to pick their 25 best athletes, that it would be more engaging. Really? Doesn't that mean that the 100-meter dash, instead of having the 8 fastest dudes in the final, I'm going to have like 4 or 5 fast dudes in the final and someone's going to run 10.5? I want that. Right?
Yeah.
I want to see the 9 best dudes in the country line up. So when we start trying to squeeze our sport into the models of other sports that are not us, we lose what makes our sport special. And I don't think that's the direction we should go.
Yeah, I don't like that too, because I've heard like a specific coach talk about that for a while. And one of the other things I don't like about it is just they're like in a major school, a major Power 4 program, and they only want the major Power 4 programs to compete, and it's like screw everybody else. And it's like that's just the opposite of what this thing's about, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a very elitist point of view. And here's the craziest part about all of that. In today's world, in today's business model, you can't even, okay, watch this. Imagine college football, but 20 schools have 105 scholarships, and then everybody else got 40. That's not competitive balance, right? That's chaos. Well, that's what our world is. So of course, certain entities in the big programs want this exclusive little room where they only get to compete against each other. Sure. They don't want whatever. They don't want the Francina McCorys of the world who won an NCAA championship in the 400 meters for Hampton. They don't want her at the meet because that's going to mess up the church's money, right? That's a disruption. San Jose State making the 4x1 a couple years ago, making the 4x1, that was a disruption, right? We didn't win the meet, but we probably affected the outcome of who did, because there were points that in the final that otherwise would have been, right? So they don't want that disruption. And I get it. But even within the P4, no one's playing the same money game anymore. So if you went to that team model, there are a whole bunch of labels, that brand name labels, that can never qualify for nationals again with the way they're funded currently. And so, I don't want any part of that. I could suggest tweaks to the NCAA system, but the NCAA system is actually pretty dope, because you know what it's based on? It's based on head-to-head competition. Right? And I'm cool with carrots for the big schools, right? Like Eugene's about to start. I would love to see a world where, because no matter what discipline you're in, every event qualified 12 humans per region to come here, right? I'd love to live in a world where those 12 individuals that qualified have already earned a single point for their team walking in the door. Because advancement is really hard, in case you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? So, the Floridas of the world, the Georgias of the world, the Texas A&Ms of the world, the Illinois of the world, they would walk here with a little bit of a cushion because they earned it. And people like me who may get 1 or 2 kids in the meet, well, we got our points too. The end result of that is when the meet's over, we're all represented in the score sheet, proving value to our administrators.
Right.
Right? We've all
Right.
proven value, because don't get it twisted. Half the schools that come here get a 0.
Mm-hmm.
And then admins are like, we spent all this money.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Right? But if you advanced here and you got even a singular point, now we all have proven some level of value. We all end up in a ranking of score. And the big programs are protected from the team with 4 athletes that comes in here and crashes the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I know a lot of smaller programs. It's like their Super Bowl almost is just getting kids registered for the regional meet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what I say. Just take the money
it's
away.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and so I just like any tweaks that I would make are all about what's good for everybody, right? Because again, the rich are going to stay rich. They're still going to get more athletes. They're still going to have more talent. They're still going to be able to do things in recruiting that I couldn't remotely afford to do. And I'm cool with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But don't ask me to live in a world where you're trying to cut us out of the equation to make your life easier. I'm not here for that.
I thought too, with going back to when you were talking about like the development of the college athletes and everything, and how they're getting faster and faster. I think it also has something to do with not only technology and coaches' education and all that kind of stuff, but the further we get from COVID, because it's like year after year, it's like just a drop as we get further away from that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the COVID thing, what COVID ultimately did in our sport is it allowed people to hang around way longer than they would have otherwise. Right? Now the COVID babies are gone. There's no more COVID class people in the system, right? If the NCAA passes this 5-for-5 thing, I think at the end of the day, that's a good idea.
I love it.
But I'm not here for the exemptions. Miss me with the exemptions. Because once you start, listen, a regular college human, you go to school at 18, 19, 20, 21, maybe 20, so you graduate. That's a normal college experience in America, right? If the NCAA passes a 5-for-5 rule, and what they've basically been talking about is they want to start the clock no matter what's going on at 19 years old, right? So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I'm cool with that. Great. You get 5 years, you can compete 5 times, but I'm on the no exemptions. You know why? Because no matter which exemption you think you want to give these kids, now you're picking and choosing who you're doing special favors for, right? I'm not for or against anybody's religion, but there's no religion that says you have to do these missions at 18 years old. You could do them when you're 28. So no, there should be no exemptions for people's religious connotations. The only exemption I'm even open for are you're from a foreign nation who demands you go to military service when you're 18. That's not your fault, right? But if you tell me you're not going to give them that one either, I'm cool. Whatever. You want to be in the NCAA? 19 to 23, I'm good. And you cut out all the nonsense. And then you eliminate not athletes. You're no longer targeting athletes from this part of the world or this particular country. You're just saying the numbers are what they are. If you want to do this sport in this world, you come in here when you're 19 and get your 5-for-5.
I agree with that.
If you go at 23, you get 1 year, whatever.
Well, the point I was trying to make with the COVID thing was not so much the people who stayed in longer, but just I think COVID disrupted things so much, whether it's like your literal practice they couldn't meet, kids couldn't work out, whether it was like just mental, dealing with depression, all that kind of stuff. But like the fact of us physically getting away from it, again, not with the kids to stay longer, but I just think times and marks and things have like, the further we get away from that, the better they get, the faster they get. I don't know. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
No, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like being a student during COVID. Like, I wasn't even in school, and that was driving me crazy, right? So, COVID did destroy a lot of kids mentally and emotionally, and I think you're right. As we're dealing with a stronger version of kids, the further and further we get away from that reality. And I'm sure there's some validity to that. Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to hit on is like, I've been following you several years, and one thing I like to point out, uh, I like how you don't really hold back um, on your views in regards to like current events and things like that. And I think it's pretty
Sure.
dope that um, from your position, you still it's a way of teaching. Not It's not track, but it's also just teaching student athletes, young people that hey, you know what, you need to stand up for what you believe in, and not necessarily negatively talk about people or whatever the case may be, but you're not afraid to open up and share your views, which all people should be able to do. And I definitely respect that regarding some of the stuff that goes on with um, various topics in California, whether it's you know transgender athletes, things going on on the political scene, nationally, internationally. I think it's pretty dope that you step up and you speak on those things and um, let these athletes know that they're empowered to have a voice. And I think that's pretty cool that you do that, and not only that you do that for those athletes but other coaches, parents, and people around the world. I think that's pretty neat that you're able
Well,
to do.
I definitely appreciate that. You can attribute most of that to my grandmother,
Okay.
um, who died years ago, but always had a voice, always had something to say, and was never afraid to mix it on any subject, right? So that's just the world that I grew up in and dealt with. My thing is this. I am very aware of my position in this sport and in our business, right? I've been told so many what I consider to be ridiculous things along my path in this position. Like I've been told if I didn't live my life a certain way, if I was unmarried, if I didn't, you know, bend the knee to, the popular order of whatever, that I wouldn't be able to elevate enough in this game. I've been told that by very prominent people that we all respect, right? And I just never like I just always looked at that like that was a bunch of bullshit. I think that you have to stand up for what you believe in. You have to be ready to defend whatever it is that's a passion for you, right? I think you should do it with empathy. I think you should, listen before you speak. I think you should give people an opportunity to have their voices heard. And it's not an accident that this particular place was attractive to me, right? I mean, these men behind me are, the shining example of all of that. I'm in Eugene early celebrating, the induction of John Carlos into the USTFCCCA Hall of Fame, while I'm also currently serving as its vice president. Um, I didn't campaign for the role of president. My colleagues thought I would be a good person to be in that chair because of all the things you just said, because they know I'm going to speak at the right time for the right things, because they know I'm not going to just let people run over coaches in our profession or opinions, be it big or small, right? I've always I've always had kind of an affinity and an appreciation for politics. Um, it's a fun thing for me. I enjoy political debates. I enjoy banter. I enjoy the process of it. Just role of VP is a very political dynamic, but I don't want to live in a world where I have to be told how I'm supposed to act or what I'm supposed to think. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And so, like even the kids on my team, like I encourage them. Like I want you guys to have. I want you to find your. I want you to stand up for what you believe in, even if the stuff that you believe in isn't necessarily things that I would co-sign. Right? I don't care what people's opinions are, but you have to be able to defend your point of view. And that's just me. And hopefully, you can find a way to defend your point of view intelligently and with respect of other people's, opinions. I think a lot of the political fights that we are currently living through in this country, in this business, in sport, are missing a layer of empathy for the minority in those situations, right? And I think people get way too emotional and overblow and succumb to the hype of it rather than thinking through like logical, respectful ways to settle things, right? And it doesn't really matter what the topic is. I'm cool. We talk about it. We talk about it on camera, off camera. It's fine. Because people that know me know I'm not going to be. I have a very sharp mind. I have a very sharp tongue, but I'm not going to be disrespectful, right? If you can make a point, I'm here for it. Let's debate it. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's find what the root cause of it is. But most of the stuff that people like to argue about in sport that's discriminatory is much more about their personal worldview than it is about fair play. And at the end of the day, it's sports. Sports is supposed to be about fair play. So that's usually where my, perspectives come from. What's fair, and how do we land in a fair place for the most people possible?
I think it's unique that, well, first of all, condolences to your grandmother, but I think it's also unique that you're coaching, at San Jose State University, and then also uh, you've also coached at Cal Berkeley, but then also from the Bay Area, the diverse communities, people you've been that raised you and people that you surrounded yourself with, they have a lot of views that are very similar to what you express on your social media account. And I think that's really cool that you're in that atmosphere currently there. And then, like I said, it's valuable for athletes to go to your university, but to have these are the conversations that like I used to like having with my athletes at the high school level. Like there's so much value in the downtime, in the warm up time, in the cool down time, on the bus, on the plane. These are the type of situations and conversations that potential recruits or parents of recruits should want their coach to have with them, because that they're being protected, that they're being just provided with quality information and coaching. You definitely want that value, but you're given worldly value, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's pretty dope that you're in the situation and position that you're in to be able to extend that. And then also as your role, in your leadership role with the USATF, CCCCA, I think that it can expand to other levels in track and field for those people that really don't have a voice. So, Coach, I think it's pretty dope for you to be in the position that you're in now, and it speaks volumes for where I can definitely see you going in the future.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I'm a product of the environment I grew up in. And yes, the Bay Area has a lot to do with that, but I mean that's my family,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm a mixed race kid, right? My father's black, my mother's Italian, and DNA says I'm 50 different things, literally. But like I'm talking about when I was a young kid, my mother's father hated the fact that she married a black man,
Mm.
hated the fact that his grandchildren were black. And I used to have to defend this and debate this with my grandfather,
Mm.
right? He used to get mad at me about which ethnicity I would put on my bubble test in sixth grade, right? So when I tell you I've been sharpened with these kind of conversations my entire life, the stuff that goes on today, like that's just easy for me. And it's like, how do I not stand on that kind of business? And let me be very, very clear, because not everybody has. I'm very fortunate to work where I work for the people that I work for, right? I could be exactly who I am, and my administration could give me grief about it. They could try to muzzle me about it. It wouldn't go very well. But luckily, I work at a place and for people who don't do those things, right? I work at a place where they value the fact that I choose to be who I am, right? And beyond is that same way, right? So I truly do wish more student athletes would stand up for the things that they believe in and find their voices, especially now, because student athletes have a lot more power than they realize, and they could affect a lot more change in this world, by taking a stand on a lot of different things. But they're distracted and they're focused on themselves. And I get that. That's what young people do. But it's also young people that have shifted all the major changes in this world that we are well aware of, right? Martin Luther King wasn't 45, 50 years old when he did it. Malcolm X wasn't any of those things, right? The Black Panthers were young. These men behind me were college athletes when this moment happened, right? So our country has always been pushed and shifted and changed by the youth. And I think that today's youth would do well to turn their voices and use them.
Speaking of that, there's a current push by the NAACP and some other organizations to get some of the college football players, basketball players, and just college athletes in general to leave some of the Power Four schools in the South. Do you think, I honestly doubt that something like that would work in today's climate, but do you think anything like that could work?
I don't know if they need to leave, but they definitely could impact a lot of things, right? There's and forgive me for not knowing all the exact details, but Don Staley was just a huge part of killing off a bill in South Carolina, simply by saying, "Look, y'all want to play this game with me, I will leave." Right? And she's big enough in that state to have that kind of influence, right?
Yeah.
The college football makes so much money, right? I'll take it out of that. I'll give you the Olympic example that I always give, because we're about to have these American Olympics in 2028. Track athletes don't get the compensation they deserve. They don't get any compensation, right? You got the head of the IOC, forgot her name a couple weeks ago, straight up say, "I don't believe in paying athletes." Cool. I bet you she'd believe in paying athletes if, imagine Sunday morning at the Olympic trials in America. Trials are over. We know who the Olympic team is. And the Olympic team for 2028 steps out collectively and says, "Hey, guess what? We're not going unless we get our cut." I bet you it wouldn't take that long to figure that out, right? If school X in the Southeast, if the football players at school X in the Southeast were aware of how viciously their existence and their voting rights are being stripped away in every way that matters, they don't got to stand. They don't need to go on campus and protest. But what if on opening kickoff weekend, they went to the 50-yard and just sat down? There will be no football played today. You think the senators, the state senators, the legislature would take note of that? You think that they would understand what a colossal financial earthquake that would be to their own issues? I bet you it'd matter.
I guess personally, I would love to see that happen. I just think with people are so about themselves and about getting paid and all that kind of stuff. I just have a hard time seeing that actually coming to fruition. But
I don't think you'll ever see anything like that, because the truth of the matter is that on something like that, there's strength in numbers, and you wouldn't have enough people willing to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Kaepernick took a stand. You saw what happened to him, right? It would have to be a collective. It would have to be all of them together, right? Be a player here and a player there. No one's going to care about that. It would have to be all of them. And that's a lot to ask. It is. It's a lot to ask of young people. And so I understand why the Congressional Black Caucus and the NAACP puts out those ideas, into the ether. And they're good ideas. They're ideas that would absolutely impact that. But you asking a lot of these kids. And again, it's catch-22. Those are the kind of things that young people used to do. There is no civil rights movement and progress that we've made if it wasn't for the youth, right? Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, all those things, right? It's the kids. but they weren't dealing with the same situations that they're dealing with today, and they, financially didn't have as much to lose. So I get it. It'd be amazing to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm graduated of the University of South Carolina. I'm an SEC baby, so I've been there. I understand. It's crazy, but something has to be done because we are absolutely under assault.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get it twisted. Like, we are under assault.
100%.
Coach, I want to circle back to a reference you made a couple of times this evening. And, I just want to ask you, like, how do you balance honoring that Speed City legacy with the gentleman you mentioned in the back, while also building your own identity for this generation of the athletes?
It's a great question. I've always said since the day I took this job, like, I'm not trying to be Speed City 2.0. I think the whole idea of that is disrespectful. It'll never be what that time in the world was. It'll never be more important. It'll never have more impact than those men and those teams had at that time in the world. Their legacy is solidified, and all that we doing is paying honest and consistent homage to them, and trying to have a program that they can be proud of. So I've never tried to be Speed City 2.0. So many of the kids that come through here don't even know much of anything about that time in the world. I mean, hell, they don't know who won the NCAA championship last year. They damn sure don't know about Speed City and the the human rights and all those things, Olympic Project for Human Rights and all those things. So we do our job, we do our best job to try to, facilitate them learning those things and, give them an education on the core tenets of it, and try our best to introduce them to the legends of the past. But, it's no secret that that's been a very politically choppy thing and hard thing to do here, because for all the good that those men did, when they returned, they weren't met with flowers. They were met with vitriol, right? They were not welcomed back after all of that. The program ultimately got disbanded. There was no track and field from mid-'80s to the early 2010s, right? We don't have a track and field facility on our campus right now, which is wild, right? So, getting the famous names to circle back and be invested in what we're doing here has been a slow process. I think we're doing a better job of it now, because there's been, legitimate, outreach to them, right? I'm happy to say that, John and Tommy came back last year and spent some time with the team, and spent some time with our new president, and we're actually embraced and all of these things, and that's great. But I'm literally just trying to make sure the kids graduate, have some kind of sense of history, and try to put out performances that those people and the history of this program can be proud of. We've broken a lot of records. Some of the untouchable ones we will forget, right? I don't see anybody coming through here and doing anything with that 19.8, right? But we did break that 4x1 record, right? So, it's fun when you can put your name on the board next to those guys, but the human beings that they are, and the impact that they had globally from this little place, it'll never be anything close to that. And that's okay. Like, that's why they're legends. That's why, we honor them like that. I'm not trying to put up any new statues around here. We got all the ones we need.
Hey, Coach, we're gonna wrap it up with this one. So us as coaches, and we love, really more so, I won't even say coach, but really fans. We're track fans. We're coaches, but we're track fans. So it's like, personally speaking, as a track fan, I love to hear from other coaches and see the behind the scenes, behind the curtains, And that's kind of another one of the reasons we put this podcast together. You're involved in your own podcast with your colleagues with the Athletics MLC podcast, which you already know I'm been watching for years. I'm a big fan of. Do you think platforms like that and like this, do you think it's helpful? They're helpful in educating parents and athletes, and do you think they actually matter?
I would certainly hope so.
Mm-hmm.
The LLC thing, like I always tell people, like people don't realize as far as the track and field space, we're the original form of this, right? It was COVID, everybody was bored, no one knew what to do with themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Huffins and Mike Holloway had always talked about just kind of having people witness the ridiculous conversations about track and field that they had with each other, right? And so Huff called me and was like, "Hey, we know none of us have anything to do right now, so why don't we try to create this podcast?" And I'm like, "Whatever. You want to get on Zoom and argue about track? Like, I'm cool with that, right?" And we gave ourselves the little nicknames that are just hilarious and mean absolutely nothing, by the way. There's no reason that I'm Miss Clyde, right? And we were lucky enough to get Marissa Chu to come in with us for that. And the biggest thing that happened during COVID was like Marissa Chu created the Coaches Collab. And that was a Facebook group where thousands of coaches came together during COVID. And we jumped on Zooms and shared information about training and shared information about philosophies and shared information about everything, mental health, all this stuff, right? And I know that helped. I know that everybody saw some kind of value in that, right? Marissa never really tried to monetize that in any kind of way. Not that mattered, right? And LLC, bro, we just realized like we've been doing LLC for 6 years. That's crazy. We've literally never missed a week, right? Some faces change. We've had different guests, but we've been consistently doing it for 6 years. And the reason we keep doing it is because it's fun for us, right? And the conversations matter amongst us. I don't know how big our LLC audience is. We never tried to monetize it. We never, until recently, we didn't put it on Patreon. We didn't do any of those things until very, very recently, right? It was just something that we enjoyed doing. And over the years, it seemed that more people cared about us doing it. So we kept doing it. Now you got, 50 different versions of podcasts about track and field, and that's dope. And some of them are really, really good. I think this is one of the better ones that's out there. How much do these conversations matter? I don't know, but I would like to think they have value, right? I would like to think that your audience watching this is going to get something out of what I said that's going to help them along their path in this business, or help them with their kids recruiting, or just help them think about the sport or universities a little bit differently than they already have, right? I hope there's value in it. But the truth of the matter is I don't really know. And as far as personal value, like dollars and cents, I've never cared about that. I really never have. I try to share information that I think is valuable. And it's dope when I go to a track meet and Coach X or athlete X, comes up to me and was like, "Yo, bro, I saw what you said on the thing. I disagree, but I love that you said it." Or, I saw what y'all were talking about. Man, I never thought about it that way. Like, those moments are important to me. Like, they mean something to me. And, it's like pirate radio, right? I don't know if one person is watching or 10,000 people are watching, but, somebody's watching. So as long as somebody's watching, I like to think that it has value to somebody, and therefore we keep on doing it. And I appreciate, the conversations that you guys have fostered through this process. And like I said, y'all had some amazing guests and fostered a lot of good conversations. I've been a part of those conversations. So I am very proud to be a part of that now. And I hope that it does matter to enough people that y'all keep doing it.
Yeah, we gotta keep trying.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate the shout. Yeah.
You say you recruit in California. I think what the California athletes need to pay close attention to, because I seen this. You had two of the of the current fastest athletes in the United States come on a recruiting visit. So I think a lot of these California athletes need to pay close attention to why those 11 flats and low 22 girls came on a visit to your campus. Even though they chose a different school, they did come on a visit. So I think these California athletes need to pay close attention to that. If they didn't see that, I advise you to go, look at their pages, because they did come on a recruiting visit, and that says
they did, and that reality is all about relationships, right? Mm-hmm. I have a 20-year relationship with their coach, and because I do, I've been to their practices. I've been out front and talked to their training group before. And that's the genesis of it. And then you put Tiana in the mix, and, apparently we got some very, very serious consideration, which was dope, right? Mm-hmm. When you see the, everything has gram now. So when the gram pops out and little old San Jose State is a top 10 choice, and then a top 5 choice, and then a top 3 choice, it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And don't get it twisted. That pissed off a lot of people. Pissed off a lot of people, and I'm so here for that, right? Right? I am here for that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, kids are going to go where they feel that they're going to be best suited, and props to them. I appreciate the opportunity, right? I appreciate the conversations. We will recruit anybody that we think can help our program, and every now and then, when kids have good structure, when kids have good coaches, when kids have good parents, every now and then you will get an ear in a household that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. And when you do, that's your opportunity to, put your best foot forward, tell the truth, and hopefully they like what you have to say. I'm incredibly proud of that almost accomplishment, right? But and I say that in jest, but it was great. It was great dealing with them. It was awesome. And I wish them nothing but success, and these are people, we might see in Team USA uniforms one day in the very near future. So that was a lot of fun. But listen, I don't care where I work at. You ain't gonna tell me I can't go after whoever. I'm from the Bay. We gonna shooters shoot. We gonna take our shot. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, Coach, we really appreciate you spending time with us tonight. I think conversations like this are important because they remind people that success in this sport isn't built overnight. It's built through patience, purpose, relationships, and a commitment to the process. And I know our athletes, our parents, especially our fellow coaches, are going to take a lot away from this discussion. We appreciate you sharing not only your experiences, but also some of the philosophy that's helped make you one of the most respected coaches in this country. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you for continuing to support Beyond the Blocks. Our mission has always been to bring you authentic conversations such as this one with our coaches, athletes, and people who are just helping shape the sport of track and field. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe, follow us on social media, and share this conversation with another coach, athlete, or parent who loves the sport as much as we do. For Coach Will Humphreys, Anthony Lewis, and Coach Charles Ryan, I'm Coach Lonnie D, and we'll catch you on the next time on Beyond the Blocks.